analytics and disruptive technologies. So Professor Spodakuma is the Paul Anderson Distinguished Chair Professor of Statistics, Operations, and Data Science, and the founding director of the Center for Business Analytics and Disruptive Technologies at Temple University's Fox School of Business. He has also been awarded a Changjiang Scholars Chair Professor of our university, actually of our school, by the China's Ministry of Education. Professor Kuma has received numerous other research and teaching awards and has published more than 185 papers in reputed journals and refereed conferences. In particular, in 2019, he was elected to become a Palms Fellow, which is a really distinguished honor in our field. He was ranked #1 worldwide for publishing in ISR, the UTD journal. He is the deputy editor of Palm Journal and the founding executive editor of MBR, among other editorial boards. So without further ado, let's welcome Professor Spodakuma to give us his talk.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, Professor Zhu, for kind introduction. See, Dalian is my second home, and I visited Dalian many times, starting 2016, and every year I used to go 4 or 5 times actually. But because of COVID, I have not been able to go since 2019. I hope 2023 we can start again. So that's the plan. But I always have close association, and also I hope to continue working with different faculty and students at Dalian. In fact, one of the students is visiting me right now from Dufay, and I hope more will come in the future. So today I'm going to first talk about my research. Then I'm also going to keep some time to talk about the journal, especially the POM journal, but I also talk a little bit about management and business review, right, Professor Zhu? And let me know when I need to stop, so I don't have any agenda in my mind that how long I need to go, but okay. I can stop whenever you want, okay?
Okay,
so you are the boss.
1 hour.
Okay. So the whole idea of my research, how I work, is in the broad domain of business analytics. And I try to start with the data. And since I run this center at Temple, a lot of my research is based on coming from industry data. And first I start with the data, where I mainly use econometric model or predictive model. Most of the time, an econometric model, I use both reduced form model and structural econometric model. And in predictive model, I mostly use machine learning and AI, and I'll talk more on that. And then once I understand the data, I try to convert that to optimization problems. And within the optimization problem, in my basic training, I graduated from UT Dallas in 2001. And I hope you all are familiar with UT Dallas. Now it's a large school, but I was the first OM graduate from UT Dallas. And now it is, of course, a very large program. In fact, at that time, we were only 2 students, Professor Sohong Yue, who also visits Dufay, I believe, and then myself, and I graduated 2001, Professor Yue graduated 2002. Now it's a large program. But the basic training we had at UTD at that time was about a lot of OR models, mixed integer program, dynamic programming, and so on, linear program. So that was my initial training. But a lot of my later work also involves game theoretic model, optimal control theory, differential games, and so on. So that is my broad research interest. I'm a big proponent of interdisciplinary research. I strongly believe that we should not keep ourselves within the boundaries of departments and discipline, because we are in the world right now where you cannot define a problem by a discipline. If you take an e-commerce problem, it is equally operations problem, then IS problem, information systems problem, then marketing problem, then strategy problem. So, all of these are combined, and a lot of my research is interdisciplinary, and I'll get into that as well. But I write a lot about that, and I've been writing a lot of editorials on that. So, first two are here, I wrote in 2018. This one I wrote recently, earlier this year, with Professor Jason Choi, Professor Sohang Yue, and so on. This was, again, an introduction piece about how Industry 4.0 era is impacting the disruptive technologies. More recently, I wrote this piece on, this is the introduction piece again to a spatial issue. Both of these are introduction pieces to the spatial issues. So they're not like a full paper, they're more perspective papers. And here, this spatial issue has a lot of papers on generating new ideas. It is not about solving the ideas, but creating new ideas. We wanted to have a spatial issue where we can write a lot of new ideas where younger people can work upon. So that's what we did here. And the December issue is our anniversary issue. So POM has finished 30 years now. And Professor Chris Tang and myself, we have co-edited the spatial issue of POM's 30th anniversary issue. It has 28 papers from all leaders in the discipline. You can think of all recent past editor-in-chiefs of top OM journals have written in that. And again, here the idea was that where the field is going, what has happened in last 30 years, and create where the new research ideas are coming. First piece is just the introduction piece, but the other papers are quite interesting. So I strongly recommend you to go read those, especially younger people. You will get a lot of different perspective reading these papers. And you can always read about my publications, and as well as my media interviews and all. These are things you can always scan the QR code, and that will also take you there. Now, today, I'm going to spend time on talking about different topics. So if Professor Zhu is okay, we will do like hour and a half, 2 hours around, depending on how things go, depending on the questions. But feel free to stop me anytime. Okay. I usually keep going. So, so when you guys are getting bored, just let me know, and also ask questions as we go along. Now you see there are many topics I have put here. So you will think that why somebody would work on so different topics. And sometimes people say I'm very unfocused person, but there's a reason behind it. It is not totally random. And there's a small story behind that. See, when I graduated in 2001, my main training, my PhD dissertation was on digital advertising. I used to work on web advertising at that time, before Google even started. So that was my PhD dissertation. And all my initial work was in OR models, mixed integer program, and so on, and creating algorithms and so on. But when I graduated, I realized that I need to build new ideas. So I made a policy that every 3 to 4 years, I would write a new PhD dissertation. And that dissertation would include a new topic that I have never worked on and a new methodology that I have never worked. And that's what you see in this slide here. But once I work on a topic, I do not leave it. So it keeps getting added. So each of these are my PhD dissertations. So as soon as I graduated from digital advertising, then I got into IT and platform management. That's when the Napster was coming and a lot of new models were coming in 2001. So I got into that. And that's when I also started doing a little bit of game theory. So I learned the new topics around that and a lot of game theoretic model. That was my next 3 years. After that, I started doing a lot of supply chain analytics. So I worked a lot on supply chain analytics. Here again, I use mixed integer programs, dynamic programming, game theory, but I also started doing optimal control theory. So that was my next edition, but that was my next dissertation. And that brought me around 2006 or 7. That's when I got into omni-channel retailing. That was my next dissertation. And in omni-channel retailing, when I started working, then I started getting into empirical models. So I started working on this reduced form econometric models, difference in difference models, and so on. So that was my next dissertation, took me around 2012, 13, 2012 or so. Then brought my next dissertation, which is going up here on healthcare analytics, which I started doing around 2012. And here I am using all the methods that I have learned, but slowly and slowly I started getting into text analytics and so on. And then came my next dissertation, which was around 2015 to 2016 to 2019, was on social media analytics. And social media analytics was uh, where I got more into hardcore machine learning. So I started doing machine learning algorithms and so on. And my current dissertation, which is ongoing, is on blockchain and disruptive technology. And here I'm also using deep learning methods and so on. So I'm now getting out of my comfort zone and try to learn this deep learning method. Although you see that I left the sustainability and humanitarian operations. This is something that I will not call dissertation. This is by my interest. Started working with a lot of non-profit organizations and so on, and that's where I got into that. So I do that now. I'm doing more so of that, but that is my side interest, I will say. Now, one suggestion I always have is that if you want to keep, we all have to be learning all our lifetime. And only way to learn is that you have to get out of your comfort zone and push yourself to do something that you don't want to do. All top researchers, that's what they have done in their life. Uh, when I was very young, somebody told me you have to be known by something. So somebody, when people tell you 20 years later, they say that, oh, this Subodh Kumar is known for this. That's a more traditional approach, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I see that the world is not that linear anymore, right? World has not been linear. This was fine in 60s, 70s, and 80s. But today, the new business problems are emerging. We are in the world where everyday new ideas come. Now, if you want to be relevant, we have to learn new things. So when I was at Texas A&M, I took several courses from economics department for the whole semester. I will participate, I'll do research. And the idea was that unless you go that deep, you don't get to learn. So I still, hopefully, I will keep doing that for next 30, 40 years. And I see a lot of younger people are emerging, and I'm sure a lot of young people are in the room. You will teach me what you are learning, because younger people always have the new technology. My PhD students taught me Python, and I'm getting deep into that now. I actually, my dean wanted me to give a demo on Python, so I wrote some algorithms and started running. And who taught me? My PhD students, right? So I'm hoping that all this young generation will teach me a lot of stuff as we go forward. Okay. So with that, let me now get deeper into each of them. Now I will go through these topics one by one. Feel free to stop me to ask questions. I will not go deeper into one of the papers, but I will talk about many papers and new ideas. So stop me and say that I'm not clear, I want to add, or I have some ideas, do that. I have no plan to finish everything. If we have time, we will keep going. If not, I will stop and I will let you ask more questions. But my goal is to make sure that you take something out of my talk today, not just sit down and listen to it. I see room showing 138 people in there. So I have my chat on my different screen. Please write your comments in there. I'll be more than happy to take your questions, comments in there. So blockchain. Blockchain is considered the biggest disruptive technology right now. And the reason is obvious. We are somewhere here, right? And look at the growth, right? So we are going to see a huge growth in next 10 years. What does that mean for us? That means for us researchers is that a lot of new problems will come that we have never seen in our lifetime. And there are practitioners who are looking on us that to solve those problems, right? We have tools, we have methodology, but we have to understand the domain to solve the problem. So, I was talking to my students and I told that, see, I really need to understand, and you tell me where the real problem you can solve. But in my mind, the biggest problem with blockchain is scalability problem. So one of my former students, not my student, he was a student at UT Dallas, but worked with me. He collected data from Bitcoin. Now, I'm neither a fan of cryptocurrencies nor I work on cryptocurrencies. So, and with what is happening with crypto right now, as you all know, today another company filed for bankruptcy. It's not very clear where it will go. However, we have a lot of data on blockchain from crypto platform. So my goal only is to take data and understand the scalability. Luckily, in Bitcoin system where we got data from has a lot of public data available. So those who don't know, just a quick thing in Bitcoin system, somebody initiate the transaction, then there are miners, there is some delay, and then the transaction is finished. So in couple of years back, they created something called forking, or where they create a new system which some users can use, and it's called SegWit. SegWit is where they reduce the size of the block and move the signature outside the transaction. And why they did SegWit? Because some people believed by doing this different way to create blocks, we may be able to improve the efficiency of the transaction. That was the idea of SegWit. Now, that's a very good natural experiment. So we collected data on before and after SegWit, and our goal is to look at what happens to the transaction fee, what happens to the delay, what happens to the participation, right? So we took data from 29 prominent service providers and around 1.13 trillion transaction worth. And here the questions we are asking, what happens to all these things after SegWit? We have a lot of interesting result. Again, as I told, I'm not here. My goal is not to get into the specific result rather than giving the broad view to you. We use DID model with some robustness, and that is the basic idea. Okay. So that is the first idea that I worked on. When I was working on this idea, then I realized, what about the adoption? Okay. So we are talking so much about blockchain, but is the adoption really happening? So this project is with a PhD student from Tsinghua. So I'm working with 4 students from Tsinghua University, work very closely with them. With a couple of students, I have more than one project. So this is one of the students who is in market, very bright student. Actually, she already has a paper with me, which is published in ISR. This is her second paper with me. And here, she is looking at the adoption of blockchain for digital advertising. Now, why we pick digital advertising? Because digital advertising, a lot of blockchain adoption happening. And of course, I have been working on this for last 20 years or more than 20 years. So I always enjoy that domain. This we have got reject resubmit from ISR that we are revising right now. And these days, I'm very happy if I get reject resubmit because that's the norm. You don't get that many revise resubmit. And reject resubmit is not too bad. Okay. So that is always there. So, by the way, there is something in the chat. I don't know. I can't read it. It is something that I need to respond.
No, please ignore it. It's some advertisement. Ignore it.
So now, in this paper, our whole idea is that the ad, there are a lot of blockchain-based network they are providing digital advertising. And Toyota has moved to digital advertising using Lucidity and so on. So our question is that how should these slots be assigned to blockchain and non-blockchain? See, we are going to live in a world where some players will be on blockchain, some will not be on blockchain. Like it's like on the roads, we will have autonomous vehicles, driverless cars, and drivered car, right? For some time it will happen. And this is always the most challenging situation, right? When the very first time the bicycle started in New York, then the horse carriage, because most of the people used to go through horse carriage, horses used to get very disturbed. So there was a huge protest in early 1900s against the bicycles, that bicycles should be banned because they are causing horses to go bad, and that is causing disruption. So people did not realize that, that will be the future. But the interesting part is that we never learned from this. Now people are complaining about driverless cars, right? They say that, no, no, driverless cars are bad. Same thing with blockchain kind of system. Any disruptive system has the same problem. So right now we are trying to see how they can work together and how in the future it will evolve. It's a game theoretic model. It's challenging model because a lot of things are unclear. In fact, today morning I was talking to the student and she was struggling with whether to do this way or that way. I told the only way to do is that understand how industry is operating and let's try to model that. But that was my one direction on disruptive. So you see here, I start with the data, I go on the game theoretic model. Another area where I feel that we have a lot of potential as researchers is on AI in healthcare. And I think this is an open area where a lot of new problems are coming. I'll talk about some of them in this slide and in some future slides. But I think this is one area which requires our full attention and a lot of attention. So in this area, one of the companies that I work very closely with is in Philadelphia, and they have a lot of new projects in that. And I'll talk about some of them. I cannot talk about all of them because some of them are still patents are pending. But in this one, we look at diabetic foot problem. Now, diabetic foot is a huge problem, and a lot of people die or even have a high cost. Why is it such a problem? Because procedure is very complicated. So this company was telling that, we have to find a solution where we don't have to do the procedure. Okay. So what can we do? So they created a device with which you can take thermal images. Now, these are the images without any procedure. You put a camera, leg is there, and you take thermal images. Now, thermal images are extremely powerful. If you can do all the analytics on that. So we started with the basic analytics, then we went into more hierarchical clustering, then we went to deep learning with neural network. And using all of this, we are able to identify that what kind of problems they may have, assess them, and then we can also recommend proactive foot care using that. No procedure needed till now. So I'm hoping that this kind of work will make a big impact. Now, one of the questions you may ask, or two questions that I had. First of all, where is business school or where is operations management, right? And second, why a business school journal be interested or will they be interested in publishing this kind of work? So I will build more on that little later, but I will tell you one thing. First of all, it is certainly business school. See, the goal of business schools have always been that we should solve business problems, right? But we got into too much of our silos of solving or publishing in journals and all, and we kind of got away from that mode. But we have a lot of skills that we can use to solve these problems. So that's good. You can say this guy is an old man. He can talk about all those things, not have to worry about publishing, right? But actually, journals are also very interested in this kind. The only catch is that you have to cater to business school journal. What do I mean by that? You cannot have a machine learning algorithm and say, oh, my algorithm is better than any previous algorithm, so publish in business school journal. That's not going to happen in near future. It may happen 10 years later. But right now, those kind of papers can only go on computer science and machine learning journals. However, if you can combine that with some other methodology like econometric model optimization or so on, and also create managerial insights, and yes, these papers can be published. And that's what I have been doing. So I believe there's a lot of potential. And I've taken the same idea and we have applied it to pulse wave, brain wave, and so on. One of the companies I'm working very closely to understand the sentiments and so on from the brain wave data. And I think this whole area has huge potential. And as I told, most of my work is with doctoral student or assistant professors. That's where I work most because, that's where you get new ideas and they get the work done as well. Another area, this is with my very recent PhD student who just graduated. She has worked on this whole idea of surge pricing. I will not get into details of that. But another very interesting thing is called industrial IoT. Now, this project, what you see here, with a PhD student and a faculty from HEFE, and here we are looking at the concept of industrial IoT. So, what is happening? Like companies like Boeing, they create an IoT platform and they give access to their competitors in the maintenance market. And why would they give access to their competitors? Because everybody can be better off. So this paper, by the way, also started with reject resubmit, but now it is revise resubmit. It is in third round. So don't get very discouraged if you get reject resubmit. And I think this paper, I'm very hopeful, and it has some very interesting results. So hopefully it gets accepted, and then you can see it in a few months. I am also very interested in cybersecurity and how it gets impacted by Industry 5.0 and so on. Wrote one piece on that, which is coming in December issue. Another one I'm revising. And finally, I'm not interested in data sharing and subscription market. And I have one paper right now. Again, this paper was very interesting. We got reject resubmit after 3 rounds of revision. So it may also happen, but that's another area I'm working. So let me stop with the blockchain disruptive technology discussion. Healthcare, I will talk separately more on that. But any questions, any comments before I jump to the next domain? As I told, I'll keep jumping from one domain to other. And after I'm done with all my research, I'll talk about journal. And I will take any questions. Feel free to ask any questions. Why did you reject my paper? You can ask me, okay? Although I don't think I've rejected paper from any of you. I'm a nice guy. But you can ask any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually on this page, I saw several reject and resubmit. So
Right.
How do you like this kind of decision, reject and resubmit, from both the perspective of the author and the editor?
So, reject resubmit is not a new thing. Around 2006 or 7, marketing science had used to do reject resubmit, and MISQ. They both had official reject and resubmit at that time. And both of them did it quite aggressively. And I'll tell you why the reject resubmit even started. So there were many journals in late 2000s, early 2010s. They got into the whole idea of that we will try to get paper accepted after 2 rounds, because they don't want paper to keep going 5 rounds, 6 rounds, and so on, right? So they told paper has to be converged in 2 rounds. Now that is a great idea, but the problem happened that many papers, they are very good papers, they don't converge in 2 rounds. So that's where the reject resubmit option started. That paper will still continue, but you get reject resubmit. Or if they think upfront that the paper cannot be converged in 2 rounds, then start with reject resubmit. That was a genesis, okay, and that happened 15 years back. But many journals moved back and removed that, and it kept going back and forth. Now, recently, in last 5 years, management science has it. I believe MISQ has it. Marketing science, I'm not sure. I think they also brought it back. JMR has it. And now POM has started recently. What I have seen from the data in POM after we implemented, we see many of the papers that could have been rejected get reject resubmit. So very good for authors, because after reject, you cannot submit back. And some of the papers that could have got revised resubmit now get reject resubmit. That also happens. But whenever the paper is in the borderline of revise, resubmit, and reject, most of the DEs use the same team anyway. So for all practical purposes, that is revise and resubmit, as you can think. So I think it is certainly a good idea for the authors. For the editors, for my side, see, I have to deal with all the submissions at form. For me, it is good, because even before we had reject resubmit, lot of these used to give reject resubmit. So what they will do, they will reject and they say, oh, you can resubmit, right? That was always logistically a headache. First of all, we don't want rejected paper to be resubmitted. That was always the policy. But if somebody make exception, then we have to keep track of that. Second, then you have to connect it with the previous submission. So basically what we have told to all the Ds, if whenever you used to give reject resubmit unofficially, now do it officially. Then all the previous version is automatically connected, and now we can strictly enforce the policy that the rejected paper cannot be resubmitted unless it is a reject resubmit, which is in the system. Everybody can see that, right? So I think from the editorial side also it is a good thing. I think more and more journal will go towards that route, and I feel that it is not a bad thing.
Okay.
But at the same time, nothing comes without cost, right? So if it was so good, then everybody would have done that, right? It has some disadvantages.
We have seen it's back and forth and for several times.
But it is, I see more advantage than disadvantage. That's what I see.
Yeah, from the author's perspective, sometimes I receive reject and resubmit. I don't know whether I should be happy or not. Maybe
you should be happy.
Yeah,
you should be happy.
I was granted the opportunity to revise the paper, right? But sometimes.
No. I'm always happy when I get reject resubmit. I'm always very happy. Okay. So, and I can tell you more than 80% of my reject resubmit has finally got accepted.
Okay. That's good news.
Yeah. So, and even before reject resubmit was official. Okay. So even before that. So I think it's a good news. Okay. Look at this paper. It started with reject resubmit. Now it is in third round, regular round, right? And this one also. This one is reverse way. But and this one we got reject resubmit. We are revising. So it's not. I think it would have got rejected if there was no reject resubmit, right? So we are happy.
Okay.
Let's move to the very good questions. Let's move to the second domain, which is social media analytics. Now, social media analytics is another area which, as I told, so this is my latest dissertation, and social media analytics is dissertation just before that, right? And that's where I got into machine learning and so on. I'll talk about those projects. Now, this dissertation I have finished, so a lot of papers are coming in print. But as I told, I never let it go. So I will hold to it for next 10, 15 years at least, or maybe more, because social media is not going anywhere given this graph, right? So social media is going to stay for a long time. And that's another reason I did start on that. And it happened from 2-3 different factors. One, there's a Professor Liang Fei Chu at University of Florida. He was graduated from, he had just graduated from Austin. And I think he told, I would like to work with you. I told, and he's one of the brightest person I have ever worked with. So I was lucky there, I will say. And then there was another team in India. They approached me that they have some data and they want to work on it. So it happened from 2 angles, and I got very interested in that. So the very first paper, and I started this dissertation around 2015, right? So the first paper came in print in 2017. And this paper was a field experiment. Okay. This paper I wrote with Liang Fei, as I told earlier. And in this paper, we worked with a company which is in the prediction market. So how this company worked is that anybody can go and do some prediction. And this prediction could be any prediction, that stock market will go up, or the somebody will win the election, or movie will be a hit. And if you get a right vote, your voting is correct, then you get some point. And we were very intrigued that why would users get involved in this kind of platform. So whole goal here was to understand the mechanism behind it and what is the theory behind it. So since it was a field experiment, we created a treatment group, we created a lot of fake followers and so on, and then we did the DID model. And again, you can go and read this. I told this paper is my first paper, so it has been now 5 years since it came in ISR. Then when I was working on this paper, I realized that, the whole social media platforms are very interesting, and there are a lot of new policy changes come. So this paper, again with Liang Fei, another author, we looked at a platform called Yelp, YELP, which is a a review platform. People go and write review. And earlier only restaurant review were there. That's how it started. So in this one, in 2009, they made a policy change that business owners can go and respond to the comments of the reviewer. So reviewer go and say, I don't like, business owners can go and respond. Now you see it in many platforms, right? But this was very new feature in 2009 at Yelp. So I got very intrigued that when platform introduces such feature, do they gain out of it? And what is the impact on the business owners? Who responds? And what is the impact of response, right? That was the question. So we started with these few questions: the impact on focal business performance, spillover effect on other businesses, and when to respond to consumer review. This was our focus here. And in this paper, we did again the econometric model, and we did a lot of interaction terms in that model. And I have, as I told earlier, I will not go into the details of the result. You can always go and read. But we got a lot of very interesting and nuanced results based on that. Here we started getting into a little bit sentiment analysis, but not much. This paper, those who work on econometric models, I really love this paper because of its robustness check. See, we listed down all possible problems and what could be the solution to those problems. Okay, so very interesting in that. If you want to read that paper just for that purpose, I think it's very interesting. And when I was working with Yelp, then we realized that Yelp flags fake reviews, right? And then the question comes, can we improve that algorithm? So these two papers are designing the Hello? Yeah, there's a question.
你作业写完了吗？没有呢。把它放在这儿吧，把你电脑。
Okay, please ignore it.
那个书。
I mute him.
Yeah. So now we got very intrigued. Can we improve this algorithm? So we took a different approach. Rather than flagging reviews, why don't we flag reviewers? Because most of this fake review come from the hired reviewers. So we focused on fake reviewers rather than fake reviews. And we wrote two papers, series of papers in Journal of Management Information System. It's not a UTD list journal, but it's still widely regarded journal. In this one, first one was supervised machine learning. Next one was unsupervised machine learning. So this is where I got into machine learning algorithms. And we look at different feature and we use feature engineering approach by creating a transformed feature. And we looked at like review gap, number of reviews, time of review, tenure, and so on. And based on that, we did fake reviewers. But then when we were working on this paper, I realized why not all companies block fake reviews? If we can write an algorithm, I'm sure Amazon, Alibaba can do that. And that led to a very interesting game theoretic model that why not firms do it. And this paper now is with a doctoral student from Tsinghua, another PhD student from Tsinghua. Actually, this paper got the best track paper award in ICIS for both best paper and best student paper. Then we got reject resubmit again. And going to your point, we got reject resubmit again, and we are revising that right now. And in this paper, the idea is that why aren't platform doing more? And Amazon has this problem, same problem with Alibaba as well. Maybe they just need it, right? So we have a game theoretic model, and then we work on it. And when I was working on this paper, and see, I also want you to see how I look at, started with empirical paper, went to machine learning paper, and then went to game theoretic model. So if you can do that, you can write millions of papers, right? That's the trick I do. And this is what, because now I understand the domain well, right? So I can model it in the correct manner, right? That's the key here. So why aren't platform doing more, right? So we did that. But when I was working on this, I realized the future of social media lies on something else or social media marketing. So I want to show you the most followers in Twitter account as of April 2020. Right? What do you notice here? I want to see if you notice anything interesting in this page here. Unusual or interesting? Anybody? You can write in chat, you can unmute yourself. I want to see what you find interesting here. Anybody? No? Look at these names. Are they companies?
No.
Any of them is a company? No. They're all individuals. Twitter's own account is not in top 10 most followed account. Okay. And many other company like Coke, Pepsi, they are big brands, right? But they are not among the top 10 most followed account. They're all individuals. Now, those who are music lovers, Taylor Swift drama, what happened with her show and all. She's hugely popular, right? And same way Rihanna, Katy Perry, Justin Bieber, Barack Obama. Now, all of these accounts, they are hugely popular. What that means, individuals have a lot of power in this world of social media. So I told, why don't I study that? And I found many examples. We are going a FIFA World Cup right now. Ronaldo got $1 billion deal from Nike just for writing on social media. Why? Ronaldo has more than 200 million followers, and he created 1.1515 social media posts that created 43.5 million total transaction or $450 million media value, right? Now, if he does it for 3-4 years, that will be much more than 1 billion for Nike, right? So Nike is very happy with that. But in the world of influencer marketing, lot of influencers are not big influencers. They are small influencers, small celebrities. Like somebody is very big in the blogging world, and then they write something about some new startup, and people start following. So a lot of companies are now deciding how to hire these people, these TikTokers, right? How to hire them. They are not like Ronaldo and all, but they are well known in their community. Maybe makeup world, they are very famous, right? So I wanted to see the impact of human brand. Now I need a context. Okay. So one of the very good contexts and I had data was on Indian election. Now, why Indian election? The interesting part here is that because I want to look at the human brand, so I look at the candidate which are human brand, and their related brand is parties, and we wanted to see what is the spillover effect and so on. So first thing we needed to do the sentiment analysis. Okay? That's the basic machine learning you can do, the most basic form. So we extracted around 23 million tweet. And based on that, we started looking at the sentiment, negative tone, positive tone. And we tried many methodology, but we picked on naive base, which turned out to be very good. And then, now, if you stop here, I don't think any top business school journal would have taken it. But then we took that one and used that in our econometric model and created a lot of insights based on that. That's where the trick comes. Okay. And this paper got into ISM. But when I was working on this paper, then I say that, and this was the PhD dissertation of my former doctoral student at Texas A&M. And by the way, I didn't tell my history. So I was at UTD. I spent first 8 year University of Washington, Seattle, then next 8 year in Texas A&M. Now I'm at Temple. So when I was at Texas A&M, my former student had this dissertation. And then we thought that why don't we optimize the selection of this influencer marketers? And that led to the next paper where we optimize. And that paper came earlier this year in management science. Now, this paper has all the, by the way, this paper had also started with reject resubmit. Okay.
I see.
So, and I'll keep telling you some of the papers. So this paper did not start with reject resubmit. So this was good. This paper also did not. This started with reject resubmit too. So both of these papers started with reject resubmit. Think about a PhD student, 2 papers in dissertation, both reject resubmit, right? But both got published eventually. So that's the beauty of this whole thing, right? So in this paper, we have everything. We have sentiment analysis, we have machine learning, econometric model, and optimization. And here I go back to my root of mixed integer program. So we try to look at a lot of small influencers or mid-size influencers. They have their brand value, how to select them. Let's say you decide to select these 2 influencers. Now they may have common followers, right? It's possible. So then you have to account for that. And if you go to the second level, it is possible that now they may also tweet, they may go to common people, right? So how to account for all of those things and make a decision about who to select and how they should post. That's what this paper is. Mixed integer program with some scheduling. Again, this is real multi-methodology paper. Please go and read. You will enjoy that. And then, this was my main work in recent past. And this was, I will say, these are all my dissertation paper. But then I have additional papers out of that once I finished my dissertation. Then recently we work on this hashtag paper. And in this paper, essentially, we look at that some companies are trademarking their hashtag. Now, when you trademark hashtag, then others cannot use it. But that's again social media. Social media should be natural grow, right? So we wanted to see why companies are doing and what is the impact. That is forthcoming in ISR. And then another paper that came earlier this year in ISR, this paper was not reject resubmit for a change. For this started with revise resubmit. And this is one of my very favorite papers in recent past. This was with some faculty from China and some from the US. And here the idea was that here again we collaborated with a company in China. This is an online grocery store. And they had a button for bargain, where if you send your card to your friends and if they react within 30 minutes, then you get discount. So we wanted to see how to design this kind of social pricing scheme. And since we worked with them, we created 3 groups, treatment group and control group. One has bargain, another has no discount, another has fixed discount. And then we did all the experiment. A very interesting paper. Again, I like field experiments, so it's an interesting paper. And then another stream of work that I'm working right now is on HR analytics. That's why I say interdisciplinary, right? So this paper is about human resources analytics. I'll tell you, there's a company in Philadelphia. It's called Develop Me, and their owner is Michael Riviera and Tony. They were co-authors in this paper. And what this does is that they create an app and they implement it for different companies. Using this app, you can give feedback to anybody in real time, your boss, your subordinate, your peers, and also you can give comments or just feedback. You can also request for feedback and all of those things. So we have done a lot of experiments with them. The first paper got published in ISR in last year. The second paper is network embeddedness is forthcoming in ISR. Third paper, where we look at the impact of seeking feedback, that is in third round in ISR. But on the similar setup, but different, we collected data at different point and we did different experiments. These papers were all revised, resubmit though. And then I'm working with 2 more papers with them, or 3 more papers on gender aspect and other aspects of that. But again, I want you guys to really conceptualize this whole interdisciplinary thing. That's where the future is. Then I work on some other paper. This paper was again with faculty from Hefe and a doctoral student. We published in POM last year on B2C, C2C. And this is another paper that with a PhD student from Tsinghua, who essentially worked with, who is working on their blockchain paper. By the way, in 2019, I visited China, I believe 5 or 6 times. And then, so I have a lot of collaborators from many different schools I work with. And this is an interesting phenomena. This is the forthcoming paper in ISR. And here we looked at another phenomena which is very common in China, that you purchase a course and they ask you to do some work or called clock in, like go to WeChat and write about the course for 30 days. And if you do it for 30 days, you get your money back. If you don't, then you have to pay your money, and we call them quitters. And platform makes revenue from both of them because there's always word of mouth. So there are a lot of questions about sustainability. How long should be the clocking period? So we look at all of them in this game theoretic model paper. This is, as I told, forthcoming in ISR, so you can go and read that. And then there's some more work, more recent work. There was a documentary on Netflix called Social Dilemma. So one of the current PhD student at Temple, all of these papers have PhD students involved, by the way. So this is the current PhD student at Temple, and he told, I want to see what is the impact of the social media company collecting all this data. Very relevant topic. Again, it's a game theoretic model. We had just submitted. This is a very recent one. And with another PhD student from Tsinghua again, here we are looking at affiliate marketing. We just submitted to ISR. And finally, with another former PhD student in marketing from Temple, we are looking at this satirical news and so on. I'll not go into detail of that. We have submitted to ISR. So that is kind of my broad view of social media analytics. Any questions here? Good. Yeah, keep asking hard questions that I cannot answer, right? That is the whole fun thing. So I'll continue. And then, since I was working so much, I worked with Liang Fei on writing this book earlier this year. In this book, we look at a lot of new topics. What are the new research questions emerging? What has happened in last 6-7 years and so on. So that is the whole idea of this book. So with that, I will switch gears and go to healthcare, which was my dissertation before social media analytics. That was my previous dissertation. And I started that dissertation around 2012-13 when it was in initial stage. But now, as you can see, again, we are somewhere here. It is also going to grow a whole lot. So a lot of new problems emerging here. And if you look at the global healthcare big data analytics market, in next 6 years is going to grow, or next 5 years. So I told, sure, I'll start with that. Now, as I'm going to my older and older interest, I will not talk about all of my papers. I will only talk about my recent papers, right? For these ones, I was talking about everything I have done because they were more recent interest. Good, Hans, should I continue?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, in healthcare analytics, one of the more recent papers, I worked with the Indian healthcare portal. And here, this paper is very similar to Yelp paper. Here, actually, they again had added some features, and we wanted to see what is the impact of adding these features, doctor responses to questions, which is very similar to the business owner responding to comments. So idea is very similar, but context is different, and moderating variables are very different, right? Speciality and so on. That was this paper. When I was working on this paper, then I realized, why don't I also look at the Chinese online healthcare portal? Because very different. So then I collaborated with some faculty from Hefei and a student, and we looked at the connection between online and offline appointment in Chinese online healthcare portal. So we did with HowDef and one more. And we tried to see that. That is forthcoming again in ISR. Then I told, well, it is India and China. Why don't we look at the US as well? So in the US, we looked at the healthcare information exchange, which is more common in US here. So what is healthcare information exchange? So all the data used to be like this in healthcare. You go, everybody has data. In healthcare information exchange, if you're part of the same exchange, then you can pull data of the same patient. Each others can do that. And there are a lot of benefits that have been discussed. We wanted to see what these benefits real, which works. So we look at the HI uses is this variable, which is a binary variable. And then we look at the different aspect of that. Prior interaction, breadth, the doctor HI experience, and how does that impact different aspects. Now, this paper is forthcoming in management science, and this we collaborated with one of the healthcare information exchange in New York State. And when I was working on this paper, I realized that there are a lot of optimization issues. The first one was a game theoretic model, and second one is a mixed integer program model. And we look at, again, with different companies, so different models and so on. Now you will see this is still forthcoming. How come ISR came earlier? Two reasons. First, many times I have felt empirical papers may drag longer because you have to collect new data and so on. Analytical model, you sit down, close your door, look at all the assumptions reviewers are asking, and you can do. That was one. Second, management science has bigger backlog, so they print it later once it gets published. But I want you guys to see, this is the empirical paper in management science, game theory paper in ISR, and then mixed integer program paper in OR on very same topic with some variation. And if you can do that successfully, again, that's another trick I will tell you to succeed in this whole process, right? And this will be very satisfying because now I understand it so well. I have a lot of extensions going on now. One extension we are doing right now. So this was the ISR and OR paper. One extension we are working is on the impact of HIEs on lab test order. This paper also started. No, this paper was not rejected resubmit. It started with revised resubmit. So now changing gear, this goes back to the same domain I earlier talked, that AI in healthcare, right? And we don't have to stop at 1 hour, right? It's not a hard stop. I can keep going.
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. So, and as I told, whenever you guys are getting bored, let me know. I love to talk, so I can talk for 7 hours. So,
but I don't want you to be too tired. So you may take your time. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I'm fine. So okay. Now this is AI in healthcare. It goes back. Now this was again with some practitioners. They wanted to see personalized healthcare for breast cancer. Now we did the work, but how to publish it? That was the trick. So in this paper, our goal was to get predictive model, but then we added optimization model. This was done to make sure we have enough contribution and rigor part. And the initial thing was the all prediction model. See, here I went into all the domain knowledge, how it works, and combine with this. But this paper is again one of my most favorite papers because the topic is interesting. And now we have got a grant from MIT for $200,000, where for other kind of personalized cancer treatment, not just personalized, not just breast cancer, other kind of cancer as well. So this is another very interesting thing that I work on. And I work on a lot of other policy ideas. This paper is from, again, online portals in China, and they have this gift mechanism. So I look at that. We have looked at that. And then I have a lot of operations or policy papers. Those I publish mostly in POMS. I'll give you one example. This paper was with Vanderbilt Hospital, and they have a holding room before operating room. So the question was that how to reduce the delays. So we did two things. One was that we created centralized planning for supply chain. So earlier, every operating room will ask for the patient. We created a centralized system. And we all know as an operations management researcher, the centralized system works better. Another piece was that there's a lot of variability in surgery time. So we created this app where we added this thing, and a nurse who is not very involved in the surgery, they can keep updating this time, so reduce the variance. That's what we all did here. And I have many other policy papers. And more recently, one of my current student and one student from DUT, Dalian University of Technology, they both have worked on this pharmacy pricing paper. That is, we got rejected resubmit in MSOM. We have now resubmitted it. And this student from Dalian, he visited me for a year. Again, very, very bright student. And then one of my current PhD student who's still at Temple, they worked on this paper. And then I did one from Hefe people on this dynamic programming. So that's my healthcare interest. As I told, this was my interest before social media, but I have focused on recent work. I think the oldest one was this one, that came in the early part of when I started working, but the rest are all newer papers. Okay. Any questions here? All good. So now I will break the sequence. Till now I was going backward, right? Started with blockchain, social media, healthcare. I will take a jump and I'll go to digital advertising, which was my actual PhD dissertation, right? But I'm not going to tell you what I did 25 years back because that is meaningless now. World has changed, right? There was no Google at that time. So world was very different, right? But I have done some more recently, we have done some interesting work that I will talk about. One of the papers we did with a company in Boston is called Chitika. Now they have a name Sidewalk. And this paper was the finalist in Wagner Prize at Informs. So it got published in Interfaces and then it also got published in OR later. So I have a lot of interest. I don't submit too many papers to OR, but that's my another area of interest that I have not given up. So my goal is once in every 5 years, I'll submit a paper to OR because that still excites me. But I submit my more to-go papers are in management science and ISR and POM. These three journals I published most of my majority of my. So in this paper, the problem is not which ad to show, but when to show the ad, when not to show the ad. So if you show too much ad, then you're wasting the space because people are not clicking. If you show too little, then you don't make money. And here again, we combine first the data analytics, then decision analytics, then feedback. So first part was prediction, then optimization, then real-time feedback. That's how this work was written. So very interesting paper. This is another paper which is very technical in nature. This is with Professor Dengpen Liu from Tsinghua. He's a chair professor, a full professor at Tsinghua. And in this paper, we looked at, this is the paper where no PhD student is involved for an exception. Here we looked at, but this is a very technical paper. So it was very hard to give it to PhD student. Here we look at feedback Nash differential games and also open loop differential games. But the idea is that how to write contracts, so convert it to problem. Technical paper, but still with a lot of insights. Another paper which is also quite technical actually, with some younger faculty I did. And here we say when to show the ad. So you observe the engagement level of the users, then decide the ad. So it is like reverse of inventory model. In inventory, when your inventory is low, you place the order. Here, if the excitement is high, then show the ad. Excitement will go down, but not too much. And then again, let them build it up, all the murder mystery. And then when the excitement is high, again show that. That's a behavioral advertising part we have done. Again, very interesting, and I'm very proud of this paper. And then I have one paper which is with a recently graduate PhD student from Temple. We again got rejected submit. We are revising. And this is more recent paper I did with one assistant professor from George Mason and one associate professor, and we submitted to management science recently. And since I have worked on this since my dissertation, I wrote a book 5 years back, again, more on the research topics, ideas. So go ahead and enjoy that. These are all very thin books, so you can enjoy reading them. Okay. Any questions? So now coming in the reverse order, I started with my actual dissertation, and my next thing was IT and platform management. There is a reason behind it too. There's a story. Everything has a story in my life. So when I graduated, that time I did not join as a OM faculty. I joined as a IS faculty, information system faculty in University of Washington. So they told me, see, you have joined as an information system faculty because you are working on digital advertising, which is IS problem too. But now you have to publish in IS journal and work on IS problems. So I started doing a lot of IT and platform management at that time. So I wrote a lot of paper on extreme programming and so on, and how to show on media and all. I'll not get into that. I will focus on more recent papers on this. So one paper we looked at software vulnerability that I'm very interested. It's a mix of empirical and analytical we published in POM a couple of years back. This is my first paper with Temple colleagues. So there's a Professor Min Suk Pang and Professor Min Chen from George Mason. At that time, he was assistant professor when we wrote. And this is very interesting. In this paper, we look at the competition between two states. Now, think of a large province and a small province, and they both need IT system. They don't need to compete with each other. They can collaborate with each other. That the big guy can support small guy in their IT, or they can work together. And that's what we have done. So this is for government IT systems, how they can work together. Now, then this is an idea on congestion. They're all scattered. I'm just doing a new one. This is again 2 assistant professors from Indian School of Business. And here we see that when congestion can actually be better. Then I had some work on software as a service. This paper is with Professor Boli, who is at Ningpo in Shanghai. He was former PhD student at Texas A&M, so that's how I know him. We have written a couple of papers together. In this paper with 2 of my former PhD student, this paper again started with, I believe, Rejectory Summit, or maybe not. And this paper, we look at openness strategy in software. Why all the companies are opening up their code, even like Apple and Microsoft. So we look at that game theoretic model here. And then last 2 papers are more recent papers. This paper is bug bounty paper is with a current PhD student. Just graduated PhD student from Temple. She's in Delaware. We look at bug bounty and we got revised resubmit in ISR. We submitted. And the final one is with several faculty from China and Yangfei. We are looking at the reward data we just submitted.
And I have a question actually. This is quite related to my research, and I also try to submit my papers to ISR, and ISR started to publish game theoretical model papers. I mean, previously
ISR has always published. I have published game theoretic papers in ISR in 2005.
Yeah. So I saw a lot of game theoretical papers here. But I mean, in the title, you always emphasize this is a game theoretical or economic.
Yeah, there is a reason. There is a reason. I don't want the paper to go to empirical people. So in the past, what happened, even though my paper was game theory by mistake, the AE sent the paper to empirical people because it was not very clear. See, many times the associate editors don't read it carefully. And they thought, it's an empirical paper. They send it to empirical reviewers. They come back and say, where is the data? Okay, go collect data. Now, that is a very different ballgame. So that threw us the roof. So I have changed my strategy. Now I write it to avoid any such problem.
So that's a good strategy to emphasize that this is a game theoretical model, right?
Well, it works for me. Okay, I'm not sure whether it's good or bad. It works for me. So I'm happy.
This is a good actually, strategy.
Yeah. So, yeah. So now I started with digital advertising, IT and platform. My next dissertation was on supply chain analytics because I realized that, yes, I can do all that, but I cannot leave my core, which is supply chain. Again, I will not look at the old papers, more recent one. But when I moved to Texas A&M, I continued a lot on that. So this one was, again, you see, empirical, analytical mixed. We work with a retailer in Spain, and we look at the information decay. We published in JOM. And then I have some work on supply chain disruption. One paper we published with some researchers from Europe, and we published earlier this year in POM. And then I have some papers on game theoretic models as well, which we published on pre-announcement 2 years back. Then, see, these 3 are very interesting series of papers. The first 2 papers are the PhD dissertation of my former PhD student, where we started on the idea of co-creation, which is a big idea now. And then we look at the differential game approach for that, first paper. Second paper is also differential game. And you can see one came in ISR, one in POM. Then my current PhD student, he told, I want to extend this idea. But in the static setting, not differential game, but a static game, but with 2 vendors. And he did that, and that paper is now forthcoming in management science. So you can extend the idea. See, initial one was in ISR Inform, now it's in management science. You can publish in top journal extension papers if it is a good idea and well done paper. Right? And we have now some extensions going on that as well. So I'm very happy with that. Okay. Very good. So this is my supply chain analytics. Then my next dissertation was omni-channel retailing, as I told. So as I told, I'm coming in the reverse direction. And this is where I meet. After omni-channel, I got into healthcare, which I have already talked. And then I will talk about sustainable operations. So now coming towards the only two more topics left, omni-channel and sustainable operations. And omni-channel, I started working on 2007 or 8. That's when I started my dissertation. But I'll focus only on the more recent paper. So in this paper, we look at what is the interaction between store opening and online sales and returns. So we worked with a multi-channel retailer, and we looked at the, again, quasi-natural design. We look at the difference and matching, and that's what we did. And when I was working on this paper, we realized that there's a whole phenomena of showrooming emerging. Now, this is my most favorite paper and my most cited paper also. And this also got the Best Paper Award in Management Science last year. So clearly very close to my heart. In this paper, we look at, and if you have not read this paper, please read. I know the Chinese version of this paper is also out there. Somebody shared with me. So a lot of my citations come from China, actually, in this paper. So in this paper, we look at the concept of showrooming. Showrooming is you see the product in store but buy it online. And I'll tell you how the idea of this paper came. I was reading this Wall Street Journal article in 2012, and they told that these are the three things companies are doing: matching, subscription service, or making it harder to match. And in this paper, we just model these three phenomena. That's all we have done. Okay. This is my simplest paper, but my most exciting paper. So it does not have to be complex. It should be good, interesting idea. I have 4 or 5 extensions of that paper right now. One where we combine the supplier angle in the paper. That paper is in the 4th round in management science. This also started with reject resubmit. I forgot to mention here. This certainly started with reject resubmit, but now it's an advanced round. Then another paper, we look at the web rooming thing. This is a current PhD student at Temple. This was the former student from University of Washington. And this again, we have got reject resubmit in management science. So this whole stream we are submitting to management science, and I have some more papers that I plan to submit to management science. And then I've also started looking at virtual showroom idea. This is on the empirical side. This is with a current PhD student from Emory University in Atlanta. And she has done a phenomenal job in this paper. And then I also look at now here, this is another thing I want to see. This is an IS paper. This is management science. We took a marketing angle of the paper. Here we don't use reduced form. We use structural econometric models. See, like this channel choice, the maximum likelihood function, and so on. And that paper is in getting revised for JMR, Marketing Journal. And here we look at abusive returner, people who buy the item with the goal of returning. And here we took, again, machine learning approach. We compared many different machine learning methods, but very operational approach. So see here, similar idea, IS, management science, marketing, and operations. So, if you can think problem from different perspective, again, you can write many, many papers. And then I have few more papers where I have taken different angle. This paper, we look at discount store opening. This we are revising for Marketing Journal. This we got a invitation yesterday to revise in MIS quarterly. Here we have more IS angle. And finally, this paper is more of mix of everything. Again, we are revising for ISR right now. And then I have done some work on, this is more on the, again, this is optimization paper, which we are revising for, we are revising for ISR. Again, started with reject resubmit, then we got a revision. And then I like to do some work on queuing models. That's my personal interest. So one paper we had in POM, one in MSOM, one in a couple in decision sciences that I have published on that. So that's my omni-channel retailing. And that now my all dissertations have merged, right? Started with backward, front, but and this is my queuing papers. Those who like, these are interesting papers. And I also had an interview on NBC. I talked about some of these things. But one thing that is left here is sustainability and humanitarian operations. This is, as I told, my interest. The first project here I'll talk about, this was with collaboration with Chinese government. As you can see, one co-author is actually from Appraisal Center for Environmental Engineering, Ministry of Ecology. And the problem that they gave us is that there are a lot of industrial pollution in China, and there are a lot of risk involved with that. There's some policy, and they collect a lot of data, but people cheat. There are a lot of fidelity issues. So they asked, can we create a machine learning based tool which can predict who is cheating, who is not cheating? So we took all this data that they shared with us. Again, we use feature engineering approach like my other paper, but here we also use PU learning approach. That's a new method in machine learning. Well, not that new, because machine learning, it is 5-6 years, but not that much in business school papers. So here, in the data says this person has not cheated just because they did not get caught, but they might be cheating. So how you can change your data to correct data using feature engineering? That's what we do. And then we implemented this framework and we did field tests on that. And then I have papers on a lot of sustainable operations. Some manufacturers allow you to refurbish, some make it harder, right? For example, Best Buy, Apple allowed Best Buy to refurbish their product. So here we are asking when a manufacturer should allow the retailer to refurbish. Then I have some other papers on trade-in on sale. A lot of retailers these days have the trade-in marketplace. So we want to see what can be done so that your profit is maximized and it is also green or good for environment. We do in terms of the landfill. Then I work with Food Bank. We have written both papers and cases. We have written 2 cases and a couple of papers, mixed integer program. And then I worked with the hurricane agencies in Houston, where we again mixed integer program. More recently, I'm looking at how social media can be used for disaster management. And here you will see a lot of papers in POM. But now, here we combine disaster management with social media. And here we look at, because of social media, more and more people are forcing doctor to prescribe remdesivir. This we have revised, resubmitted in ISR for a special issue. And I'm very eager to hear from them. And more recently, we worked with a company in India to look at carbon footprint. We have again got reject resubmit from Journal of Operations Management that we are revising right now. And then with my current PhD student submitted this paper to Management Science on why people contribute to Wikipedia and so on. So that is my research side, okay? And I have covered all the domain I started with, okay? I hope I have not bored you or you are not sleeping by this time, but I will take any questions before I get into the talking about the journals and all. That will be totally different direction. But any questions, any comments?
Spoda, let's move to the journal part, and hopefully we hope we can finish it in 20 minutes.
No, journal will not take that long. Don't worry. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Because many of our students they have another task, so they have to leave earlier.
I can even finish in 5 minutes if you want.
Okay.
And this is one of the videos you can find in my website where I talk about different applications. Okay. So POM journal. So my role in the journal is that I am the deputy editor of the journal, and every paper which gets submitted first comes to me, and then I assign it to a department editor. And what we do, the first thing, my goal is to make sure that there's no serious issues. And we usually try to honor your department editor, whatever you choose. But sometimes you choose wrong, like they don't handle empirical, you choose them and so on. Otherwise, we go by that. And we also look at the ethical issues and all. We are very strict about that. Like paper was not rejected. So we have many departments and many new departments. So how do we create new departments? Those are created based on the demand and where the field is going. So we did disruptive technology, which I'm co-DE. We created new business models and operations innovation, which is done by Professor Sunil Mithas and Professor Jeffrey Parker. Both are experts in the field. We also did not for profit. We get a lot of paper on this department from China and India, and this department is run by Professor George Shanti Kumar and Chris Tang. They both are DE in this one. And then we also created revenue management and market analytics, which is done by Stephanus Jasin from Michigan, who is an expert on this as well. And we have a lot of interface department. But your goal, your contributions need to be in the OM for sure, even in the interface. We have done a lot of spatial issues lately. These are the spatial issues which are the most recent one. This one got published in October. So this is done now. Others are still going on. And this one has submission deadline till November 30th. So make sure that you still submit that. You still have 2 days to go. What is the date today? Today, I believe 28th, right? So you have 2 more days to go there for submission. So if you're interested, please go there. This is an interesting spatial issue. Now, a little bit about the journal. I know that many of you are already aware, but this is the only OM journal in the Business Week list of top 20 journals. It is also in the Financial Times top 50 list, UTD list, and ABDC list. It is A-star and many more. So pretty well regarded journal, and thanks to all our authors and reviewers and editors from China, both mainland China as well as a lot from Hong Kong and other places. So we ask our POMS member the following questions. Which OM journals are counted as for tenure? Not what you believe in, what is counted. That's the real measure, right? Whether you count or not. And see, the results were interesting. So management science was 92% school told we are counting as A or better. And POM was 85%, tie with OR. And then right after that is MSOM and JOM. So we are in good shape there. And this is for many schools, they came with that. So I think journal has a very good standing, but we still want to make it better. Okay, we want this to be, even though management science is interdisciplinary, we think there is no reason to be below this. I think we certainly publish similar quality paper. Another thing, we look at the number of articles in a journal from top 50 Financial Times MBA schools. And I also have data on top 50 Business Week schools and all. How many papers are in these schools published from these journals? Again, we are very high. And if you look at non-top 50 school, again, we are very high. Okay. So we publish a lot of papers, but this shows that we are playing a very important role here. And if you look at other journals, OR is there, which is multidisciplinary and management science. And then I believe MSOM is here. Then JOM is even below. I have not put all of them in here, but JOM was after that. Okay. So yes, this also shows that we are publishing good papers. Citation factor, MSOM and JOM is higher than ours, but we are good. We are higher than management science and OR. This was 2020 impact factor. There, I think the new one has come. I'll have to look into that. We have a lot of new initiative. We post video of several published papers, video blogs. So we have around 28 papers for which we have video blog, and we are publishing more of that. So please go and watch. If you go to poms.org, on the top, you can find our YouTube channel. Also, on our social media, we post. We started a podcast series where a lot of interviews are posted. So please go to our YouTube channel and watch these videos of papers. These video blogs are the simpler version of the paper. So you will like that. You will love that. We have on LinkedIn, we have more than 4,600 followers. I believe you can use LinkedIn, or I'm not sure whether in China you can use LinkedIn or not in mainland China. But if you can, please follow. We are on Facebook, but I know Facebook is an issue, or Twitter. I'm not sure whether you can. But we write about all our paper acceptances immediately after the paper is accepted. Updates about article in advance, text blog, video blog, podcast. We do all of those things. So please follow that. Review time, we are working very hard. So our median review time was 54 days last year. And this year we are hoping that it will be even less. Okay. So we try to very mindful of that. It is very important for you guys. In 2021, we got 1422 submission. Now you see the dip here, but don't worry. This is the COVID year. We jumped from 10,000 to 1581. COVID year, every journal got 50 to 60% increase, and it went down in again after that. And actually, a lot of this jump was because papers from China, interestingly. So, but we will this year again we will be between 14 and 1500, or maybe a little more than 1500. That's where we will be. So we have a consistent growth. You can see 911, then we went 910,000, then we had a big jump, and that's where we stick now.
It increased so rapidly, right?
Yeah, the COVID year, all top journals got around 50-60% increase.
Wow.
So in COVID time, everybody was
increase.
Yeah, because everybody was sitting at home. They were stuck. They could not go anywhere. So everybody was writing papers. So that's what happened. So when you're stuck at home, you can't go to a ski resort and you can't do anything, right? No vacations. Everybody
so
was
you have
writing.
to do research at home so you can publish more.
Now, this is a very good. MSOM had a 40% increase. Management science has 40% increase. We had almost 60% increase. JOM had around 30% increase. All journal had huge jump that year.
Okay.
And some of them has sustained, not all, but some, right? So that's what happened. And we see that's why we're publishing more articles also, because we are getting many more things. So you see 290, 2021 published. We don't have page limit problem. In 2021, we had 6,836 institutions. We got this. And the darker means more circulation. And we did a lot of free access to around 4,600 journals. If you look at our institutional reach, China is pretty high. In institutional reach in 2021, it was 196. And then China, this is region wise, so China region, and which is pretty high. If you look at the US region, this is 685. And then after that, you forget about rest of the world and Europe. China region is the highest one. Now, if you look at the article download trend, and that's another one, you see the sharp jump. And then there was a little bit dip here, 2018, 19, I don't know why, but then again, sharp jump here. COVID, a lot of people downloaded a lot of papers. Now look at the top 10 downloading countries and regions, right? So mainland China has twice as much download as US, okay? 18 and 36%. So POM relies heavily on mainland China, and we get lots and lots of downloads from there. So we are very happy that the journal is regarded high, as well as they see. I was giving a talk at McGill in Canada. Their department, they put POM higher than management science now, and many such departments, we know that, which is a good sign.
Yeah. Exactly. I stayed in McGill for 2 years, so they have their own list, and POM is at least the same as management science. Actually,
yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of downloads from mainland China. And now look at the country of submission. Now this is little misleading, because this only looks at the submitting author country. Okay, so it's not all the authors, only submitting authors. So this is a little bit misleading. But still you see the more submitting authors are from mainland than US. This is the first time it happened in history of POM last year that mainland China had more submitting authors than the US. And then there's a big dip here, right? You look at these numbers, then the huge drop here, then everything else comes in there. Even others are much less than any of these two, right? But in terms of the acceptance, again, it is only the submitting author. US is still much higher. And I will talk about some of the things. POM certainly does not have any bias against any place where it is submitted from. That's the whole thing about POM, very open journal. But there is a quality issue. That's why it happens. Not about the bias or anything else. It is more of the quality thing. So what can be done to increase the chances of acceptance? Copy editing for language. That is the biggest problem. So please ask your colleagues to read who have published in top journals, and use a professional copy editor before you submit. That works like magic. But don't rely on copy editors to write for you. You have to write yourself and just improve it. The references cited in the paper should be in the reference list, and vice versa. This is one common problem where reviewers get very annoyed. The introductory material should not be copied from another paper of yours. It is called self-plagiarism, and the papers are rejected on that ground. Not only that, it is considered ethical violation, so don't do that. Start with a long draft and then shorten it to make it precise. Shorter paper have higher chance of getting accepted. So don't try to write long paper. People fight with me, can you allow me 3 extra pages? They don't understand that they are increasing their chances of rejection. Okay, we don't allow it anyway, but they are anyway asking to reject their paper, which is not a good strategy. Let several colleagues review it before you submit, and read the published papers to see how you can borrow from that. Now, I do a lot of other sessions when I visit Dufay. I do a lot of sessions on just paper writing. So those who are around, do that. I have done that when I used to visit, and I'll happy to do it again when I'm there next time. So attend those, and I talk about that. And this is the most downloaded articles on Wiley Library in 2021. And this actually deals with how we start our new department. Look at the topics. Big data, Jason Choi's paper. Blockchain, Manmohan Sodhi and others. The nano store supply chain. Sustainable operation, Paul Kleindorf for paper. Blockchain adoption again. Agency selling, COVID-19, marketplace, blockchain. See, these are the things which are getting published more and more, right? Downloaded more and more. This also tells you what are the hot topics, right, in the OM field. So look at that. And I'll take a couple of minutes talking about a new journal that we have started called Management and Business. Now, this Forbes wrote an article that it is a rival to HBR, but it's not a rival. This journal was started as a supplementary practitioner journal. Wally Hoff, Chris Hittner, and Kalyan Singhal are editor-in-chief. I'm the executive editor. And we have 12 co-sponsors, including SIBS is part of it. And City U Hong Kong is also part of the co-sponsors. And many top schools from the US, including UCLA, INSEAD, Cornell, Vanderbilt, Michigan, CMU, Dartmouth, and so on. And then we have around 250 advisors from all top schools. Lot are from mainland China and Hong Kong and all, and from companies as well. You can read the first 3 issues for free on our website, which is included from everywhere people have published. And please share those 3 issues. Now it is subscription based, but please share with everybody through whatever WeChat and all. An offer that MBR has an open offer for any school's alumni that you can customize MBR for your school. And Chinese language edition is being worked out. Professor Homin Yan is working on Chinese language edition, and he's the editor-in-chief. And we already have a Japanese version now with Nikki University in Japan. They have done this. So if you are interested in creating a customized version and so on, please contact Professor Kalyan Singhal and me, and we'll be more than happy. But please read, contribute, and see how you can collaborate. Okay. So I'll stop with that. And I hope, Han, I finished in 20 minutes what I had promised.
Okay,
right?
that's great.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will take any questions anybody may have.
Yeah. Our professors and students. Any question for Professor Kumar? Any questions?
Hi, Professor Kumar. Could you hear me?
Yes, Tongli.
Yeah. I have one question. You have introduced many papers in your slides, and I find some of them is about game theory, because I'm using game theory in my research. Recently, I submitted a paper using a stylized model, a game theoretical model, but the reviewer thinks on the methodology side, my paper does not provide any new contribution. When I saw that, I was confused.
Which journal did you submit to?
I guess it's International Journal of Production Economics.
Yeah.
Okay. So see, any paper you can get whatever, any set of reviewers. But I can tell you one thing is that a stylized model is fine,